Hello, church. We are back from Las Vegas. Quite a trip, a whirlwind in 7 days. A lot went on, a lot happened, and it was really a good time for Rob and Becky and Judy and I. And we thank you for your patience. I'm sorry I didn't get a video out last week. I hope to do it online from down there, but it seemed like every place we went, it was just public uh, internet. I couldn't get into a private internet anywhere where I felt safe, and so I decided that well, it ain't going to happen. So that's what happened there. It was a good trip, like I said, and Rob and Becky have their new home. It's a 44-foot travel trailer called a Momentum, and it's got a little garage in the back of it where they'll park a little tiny car that they got so they can run around wherever they happen to be without unhooking the trailer or hooking up the using the big truck. Everything went well. Thank you for your prayers. I felt those as we traveled around, that there were some pretty rough times. We went through a couple of thunderstorms, lightning, rain that you'd think would wash you off the road. So but it was real good. We're glad to be home, and our grandson and his wife have now found a place, and Crystal and Sean will be moving to Lebanon and switching the kids over, going to school over there, and continuing with the adaptation of Oregon. It's still a little bit new for them, but they've been around here a lot now, and they're feeling pretty comfortable here. So anyhow, just wanted to let you know that it's going to be good for Judy and I. It's been a long year plus, and we're just happy for them because they'll be able to set up their own household and do their own thing. So we're thankful for that. And God is good. He provided it. They were just looking for places and happened to have the landlord sitting outside of it. And when they started looking at it, he came up to them, and there we go. It was all done. Very down to earth guy, and he let him in without some of the usual costs that drive people away from housing. So anyhow, that's all good. And we've had kind of a sad week with Gene and I passing away. And as most all of you know already, his service will be this Friday at 11 o'clock in the morning. And we will be conducting his celebration of life. And it is one to celebrate. 95 years old and 75 years with Marie. Blessing that not very few people get to enjoy. And it's been real hard for Marie. Please pray for her. She's been struggling with it. It's what do I do? Jean was my life, so I understand that. So keep her in your prayers. We'll be having a dinner after the memorial service, after the celebration of life. We'll have dinner there, and Gene wanted everybody to have Kentucky Fried Chicken. So to honor Gene, we're going to have Kentucky Fried Chicken, and that's going to be what it is. And that'll be served afterwards. And we've got some folks making potato salad, and some making beans and coleslaw and this, that, and the other. And so it'll be a good day to remember and celebrate the long life that Gene enjoyed. It was great to spend a little time with Marie now, and I just will miss Gene. But life goes on, and God is good. The mess our country's in, it probably wouldn't be bad to go home and be with Jesus. Anyhow, so let's get back. We were looking at a little book of Leviticus, one that not a lot of people like to get into because it's got so much of this clean and unclean and clean and unclean and what's this and what's that. And to be flat honest, like I had told you last week, I didn't understand all the extent of these rules for eating and their purpose, how God had designed this and told them, the Jews, how to stay healthy, how not to have all the diseases that wiped out other civilizations. You don't see the Ammonites and Jebusites and all of these other different Philistines. You don't see those people today. But the Jews are still here, thousands of years later. Why? Because God gave them rules, sanitary rules, and other rules of how to live and continue to live and not be taken over by diseases and that. And man, the practicality of this book is amazing, especially if you have some of the details. A whole lot of things I didn't understand. But if you had some of the details, it really opens it up. And that's one of the things that we got to strive for. How can we, here 2,000 years later, how can we really understand? And what we have to do is go back to that first century or further back, and we got to understand the culture and the time that they were living in and how things were practiced. Excuse me. So we're going to take and pause for just a minute. I've got to get some water, and then I'll pick back up and go. Oh, that was refreshing. The pause that refreshes. I remember that. Last week we were talking about the utensils and dead animals and carcasses, and if it falls on this and falls on that, and what you have to do with it. Clay pots, they didn't have the glazing that we have today, and they were very porous. So if anything unclean landed on or in a clay pot, the utensil and everything in it had to be thrown away, and the pot had to be broken. And we talked about the value of those pots. They really, they were expensive. And so when they had to break one, it was kind of a financial burden on them. But it talked about, being unclean if you touch a body or pick up a body of anything, that you're unclean for 24 hours. It says you're unclean till evening, but it's talking about evening of the next day, so that you've got at least 24 hours for any of the bacteria and stuff to dissipate and be killed off and that. So that was one thing. If you have something that's wood or cloth or hide or sackcloth and that has gotten unclean, you put it in water and it'll be unclean until evening the following day. So the pot, though, got to break those. Yeah. So anyhow, we went through that with the utensils. Now we're going to go into the food. And here I learned some more. Any food that you're allowed to eat that has come in contact, this verse 34, Leviticus 11, if you want to follow around in your Bibles, Leviticus 11, and we're going to start with verse 34. Any food you are allowed to eat, that we'd already talked about clean and unclean animals and the split hooves and all of that. We've got that down last time. With water from any such pot, any food you are allowed to eat that has come into contact with water from any such pot is unclean. So if you've got an unclean pot and any food has come into contact with it, it's unclean. And any liquid that is drank from such a pot is unclean. Stay away from it. You can't use it. Anything, verse 35, anything that one of their carcasses falls upon becomes unclean. An oven or a cooking pot must be broken up. Can't use them no more. If a carcass falls on it, they are unclean, and you are regard them as unclean. A spring, however, or a cistern for collecting water remains clean, but anyone who touches one of these carcasses is unclean. If a carcass, here's a good one. If a carcass falls on any seeds that are due to be planted, they remain clean. Okay? Carcass can fall on it, the seeds are still good. They're dry, they're locked in. Now, if water has been put on the seed and a carcass falls on it, it's unclean for you. Why is that? Because once water touches these seeds, the seed starts opening up, the pores start opening up, and it's ready to be planted and to grow. So if it falls on it, they're unclean for you. If an animal that you are allowed to eat dies, anyone who touches its carcass will be unclean till evening. Here again, the next day. Anyone who eats some of its carcass must wash their clothes, and they will be unclean until evening. Anyone who picks up the carcass must wash their clothes, and they will be unclean till evening. Every creature that moves along the ground is to be regarded as unclean. It is not to be eaten. Heard of people eating snakes? Well, they're unclean because they crawl on the ground. And, it goes with any of those. You're not to eat any creature that moves along the ground, whether it moves on its belly or walks on all fours. Okay. Or on many feet. So that takes in a lot of bugs and stuff. In Thailand, they've got these big rice bugs, and they call them bot bugs because you could buy one for a nickel, and a nickel was equivalent to a baht. It took 20 baht to make $1. So they called them bot bugs. That's B-A-H-T. But anyhow, those creatures were a delicacy for the Thai people. I'm not going to go into how they ate them, but it's pretty yucky, but they loved them. In fact, on the flight line and in the air base I was on, at night we'd turn on these lights, to see what we're doing, working on the aircraft at night, and you have all of these powerful lights shining all over the place, and the bot bugs were drawn to them, and they would be so thick on the ground, you could feel them when you'd step on them, coming around the corner and step on a bunch of them, and it was slippery too. But the Thai people, the workers there on the base, they would be out there with gunny sacks, loading them up in the gunny sack, because they could make a bag with 500 of them in there, or 1,000. I don't know how many they could get in that bag, but then they would go sell them the next day. So, yeah, matter of taste, I guess. Anyhow, so don't defile yourselves with any of these creatures, something that crawls on the ground or its feet's on the ground. Do not make yourselves unclean by means or be made unclean by them. I am the Lord your God. consecrate yourself to be holy, because I am holy. Do not make yourselves unclean by any creature that moves along the ground. Now, he also mentioned any creature that walks on all fours. So, like a dog or a cat can't be eaten because their paws are porous and they will absorb bacteria and germs as they walk on the ground. And that gets into the system of the animal and it becomes a part of it. And so that's why it's unclean and you can't eat that. I know there's places, in the Far East that eat animals, eat dogs, horses, and cats, and anything with meat. And it is. The one that got me was, and I think it comes up here in a little bit, but like shrimp, crustaceans, and that. They're little crab, they're little catfish. They're up there sucking up all the crap off the bottom of the ocean. So anyhow, you're not supposed to eat that stuff. But anyhow, I think we're going to stop there. I didn't get very far because I was trying to bring you up to speed on what we've been doing, and I wanted to mention about Gene Nye and let you know that. So I appreciate you being here. We'll pick up there with verse 44 next week. We love you, and I was so thankful to be back and very sorry I didn't make it back for Sunday. I really felt badly that we couldn't do that. But we are home safely. Thank you for your prayers. God bless you. Have a wonderful week, and I hope to see you at Gene's Celebration of Life Friday morning, 11 o'clock. God bless. Talk to you next time.